Were you aware of the pressure under which Fall Out was made?
Yes, he took great pains with it, with very slim facilities, really. And he was he wasn't very well at times, you know. I think under the enormous pressure of doing this, that, I mean, he worked and worked and worked. I think he took a slug too much now and again, particularly in the lunch hour. And I can, just to keep himself going, I would say. And I can see him now, tall and handsome and elegant, directing, and then he'd act, he'd move over and act, and then he'd be back directing. I could see him after lunch now, just swaying slightly, swaying. And yet, from a professional point of view, not a point was missed, you know. Nothing. By God, you had to be on your toes with him, because if anything wasn't up to scratch, you'd hear about it. But he was attempting something that he really hadn't got the facilities to do, but of course he did it. And Patrick, you know, demands his high standards, and of course Leo McGowan is one of the finest actors in this country. But, I mean, that sort of interrogation, that sort of quick, rumor had it that Leo, in those interrogation scenes, Patrick would challenge people, you know, and Leo McGowan is a pretty tough Australian, but I think it had a pretty shattering effect on him. That's before that last episode. I think I even talked to Leo, but it's a long time ago, but certainly I'd heard about it, and I probably raised the subject with Leo.
Do you think McGoohan was keen to experiment with television?
Well, Patrick is a very free improviser. I think he wouldn't be afraid to shift from a formula if he wished to say something slightly different. I mean, he felt that he wanted to say things, and if he could see a way of expanding those thoughts, I mean, he had great big ideas, like the rocket taking off. I know he didn't have the big facilities of some directors, you know, in a big feature film for that sort of thing. But I know it was tremendously important. He worked so hard to get the right effect. I remember he worked himself. He almost killed himself with hard work. Killed himself. He was doing everything, and yet he wasn't selfish. I've peeped into your magazine downstairs, so I've said this story before. I mean, he was extremely free with people to use their creative energies. He suddenly said to me about the speech at the end that the president makes. He said, you write it, Kenny. Ken, you write it. Kenneth, he would have called me. Now, there would be no familiarity like Ken or Kenny. Kenneth, he said, you can do this. You write that. You know the sort of thing. And I wrote it, and that's the way it was. He wasn't the sort of man to say that's marvelous or anything like that. You get no nonsense from him. But it was obviously acceptable because he made no objection. Very interesting man. And as I've said to you, I really do admire him and like him very much. His difficult behavior or sharpness comes out of, you see, a man's talent and his private behavior is not divisible. You can't complain about a great actor, and I think McGoohan is a great actor. Far greater than, as I was saying to you earlier, say, Ice Station Zebra, was it, than Rock Hudson. Far greater actor, more powerful actor, more intelligent actor, more deeper actor, and a very handsome man. He should have been, Patrick McGoohan should have been one of the biggest stars that has ever hit the cinema. But of course, he doesn't play the game to get on. Mm.
Were you ever involved in any on-set improvisation?
I never knew any improvisation beyond him saying, you write it. And me phoning up and saying, I've written it. Giving it to him. No comment, typed up. I did it. But I was never involved in any improvisation. And I doubt very much whether Alexis, isn't it, Canna? Yeah, and I think that he came from a school, you know, he would be a method follower, I would imagine. And whether he did or was allowed to, I don't know. But Leo McKern and people like that weren't improvisers. You know, we either accept the lines we have to speak or try and get them changed, and then we make maximum effect out of them, which I think is the professional job. And you can hardly equate David Tomlin with Mr. Canna, who was a very funny chap. I wasn't at all sure about Alexis, yet Patrick was devoted to him, to his potential talent, which undoubtedly... But there we are. So nothing that one says is, it's a reflection, an impression, but how one can ever find the truth about anything.
What was Patrick's relationship with Angelo Muscat like?
Ah, well, I mean, I talked to it. He didn't say very much, you know. Well, there again, not only did he, of course, look extraordinary, which was valuable, but there was a relationship. Patrick treated him with quiet respect, nothing more demonstrative that I ever saw, but just quiet respect. I think he has a deep concern behind this facade of, I think Patrick, it was meaningful. Everything is meaningful to Patrick McGoohan. Everything. Everything is deeply meaningful, as it is in my life. You know, this peculiar house full of, there are definitions, there are punctuations in my life, things that help to tell me what I've been and who I am. Now, I very much doubt whether Patrick, but Patrick in a certain way, in a mental way, likes to know exactly where he is with anyone and why.